like to get this really hot so that when I drop in the beeswax pellets, they melt immediately. It just makes the whole process a lot easier. This is the brand of beeswax that I'm using. We're gonna go with around 2 teaspoons. I'm gonna make a couple different samples to give as gifts. Also, ignore the mess. I made a mess and my roommates are moving, so we're all packing and it's, yeah. This is 2 teaspoons of beeswax going in. We're using the same amount of castor oil, 2 teaspoons, and I'm using the Now brand, which is non-GMO. Now we're adding 1 teaspoon of coconut oil. This is the brand that I'm using. It's organic virgin coconut oil. And we're just gonna mix it in with the rest of the oils. While those are simmering, we're just gonna leave it on a lower heat. We're gonna sanitize the bottles or the containers that we're using. I'm using hydrogen peroxide to just wipe out the inside and the cap. And just do a dab. Obviously you want to make sure that your stovetop and your counter space is very clean. You don't have any food scraps laying around, any water. You don't want any water in general anywhere near this because then it can go bad. Obviously you don't want to use a product if it's been sitting around for like 6 months, but it helps obviously to make sure that nothing can grow in it. A lot of the ingredients are naturally antimicrobial, but we'd rather be safe than sorry. Finally, before we move on to my favorite part, which is the color, we're adding a flavor. You can use peppermint, you can use whatever oil that is cosmetic grade and safe to ingest. I'm using this strawberry flavor oil, and I'll link the brand below. I'm making around 4 different containers, so I used 6 drops. I don't like to overdo it, but I don't want to taste the oil flavor either. Now moving on to my favorite part, which is the coloring. We're using this rose clay. We're going to use around 1 teaspoon of it. I would use a bit more. We're going to see if we need to. You can kind of play it by ear. I'd rather add a bit less than more because I don't want to ingest too much clay. The clay is ingestible and it's safe, but I would rather just use less than I have to. I decided to go with 1.5 teaspoons, period. You want to push out any of the buildups. Look how strong of a color that is. Finally, for my favorite part of all, the sparkly part. You don't have to do this, but I'm not a fan of a matte lipstick, so I would rather use some shimmer. We're using mica oxides. These are approved for cosmetic use, and when you're buying this, it should say approved for eyes, lips, and face. Some of them are approved for lips, some of them are not approved for eyes. I would rather make sure that I get all 3, just because it'll be a bit safer. And if you want to use it for multiple different things, then now you can. So that's up to you, but my advice would be make sure that it's safe for all uses rather than only lips or only eyes. We're using the smallest amount ever of this because it is still a mineral and I would rather not use a lot of mineral. A lot of the things you'll see, I try and use like a minimal amount. So we're gonna go with like a pinch. I don't really know what the measurement for this would be. It'd be like 1/20th of a teaspoon type of thing. And that's why you only need to buy it once and make sure that it's safe for all types of use. We're using that much. It's a really small amount, but it does the job. The heat is off at this point. You can see it's thickening a bit, so
It hardened on the spatula, so we're going to turn it back on just for a tiny little mix. You can see on the side it hardened a bit, but let's mix this in. Once this is all mixed in, we'll pour it into our containers. Even if you get the mixtures right and everything, it might not come out as you expect it to, so I might make a video on troubleshooting what you did wrong, so things that can happen and what you did wrong and how you can fix it. Also sanitizing, sourcing materials and knowing what to look for, and yeah, how to store stuff and use it, I guess. You want to make sure that it's not really hot when you begin pouring into the molds, because we'd rather not heat up the plastic molds. Ideally, you'd want a glass bottle. Now that they've cooled off a bit, I'm just going to cover them, and then we're going to let them solidify a bit before we try it on. I put it in the freezer, which was kind of stupid, so it hardened a lot, but don't do that. Leave it out so it's nice and warm. It hasn't made a huge color difference on my lips, but it does make them look a lot fuller, which is nice. It is actually adding a color difference now that I do really like it though. So if you do give this recipe a try, let me know. We'll do troubleshooting next, because that was an issue that I encountered when creating the recipes, is you can overdo it or underdo it, and if it's just like a drop more or less of something, it really does make a difference. So I'm really excited about this. Let me show you guys what it looks like on my arm, just to get an idea. I love it so much. This so far and my lip gloss has been my absolute favorite. I can show you what it looks like with the lip gloss. It just adds an extra layer, which is really nice. I'm not selling these anymore because I want to upgrade to a glass bottle. I don't like the plastic. It works, it's fine. You guys can let me know if plastic is fine, and I'll continue to make and sell these. However, I would prefer glass. I was able to find glass. They're very pretty, but each bottle cost me $9. That's insane. I don't want to charge $9 above what I'm already charging, because that would be insane for a glass bottle. So until I find a way to source them for a lot less than $9, I will be on hold. However, I did already provide the recipe to this several different times on my Instagram, and I believe on my YouTube as well, so you can check those out if you want to make it. If not, I will be selling these and the lipstick soon.